Okay, good evening, everyone. For everyone's information, this will be recorded to be used by the League of Women Voters for their records of the event. I would like to welcome all of you to Kirtland Community College. My name is John Thiel. I'm the Dean of Arts and Sciences here at the college. I've been here for quite some time. I used to teach history. I know the importance of civic engagement. I'm glad to see you coming out tonight to hear these two candidates for high office speak and share their thoughts on the issues that matter today. As the evening goes on, you will all be welcomed to submit questions to the candidates, and I know the representatives of the League of Women Voters will explain that in more detail. But again, I just want to welcome those of you who've never been to this campus. How many of you have never been to Kirtland before this evening? Is there anyone? A few? Okay. All right. Just want to welcome you to the college. Kirtland Community College serves one of the largest geographic districts in the nation among community colleges. We serve several counties in the area, and we're thrilled that you were able to come here tonight. As I said before, we understand the value of civic engagement and having a vital role in the community. And events like this help us to fulfill that mission. So again, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. You're a small but very engaged crowd, and I'm very excited to hear what questions you have to pose to our candidates. And I very much want to thank our candidates for attending this evening. And so without further ado, I'll hand the microphone over to Marcia from the League of Women Voters. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Jen. Hello and welcome to the candidate forum sponsored today by the League of Women Voters of Grand Traverse Area, Crawford County Unit, and hosted by Kirtland Community College. The candidate forum is for the office of the 1st Congressional District General Election on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. My name is Marcia Copa, the chair of the League of Women Voters of Grand Traverse Area, Crawford County Unit. The League of Women Voters is a national nonpartisan organization. That means that the League never endorses nor opposes candidates or political parties, but it does work to obtain and share information to the public about candidates and their views. The League promotes the informed and active participation of all citizens in government. We work to increase understanding of major public policy issues for education and advocacy, and we advocate only when we have well-researched and developed position. Membership is open to anyone 16 years or older. We are recording this forum with the help of Kirtland Community College IT staff. This recording can be viewed on LWVGTA's Facebook page and Traverse Area Community Media, TACM website. The forum and its recordings are the property of the League of Women Voters of Grand Traverse Area. No portion of this forum may be used for any reason without express written consent of the League of Women Voters of Grand Traverse Area. Our moderator today is 24-year member of the League of Women Voters. She's the president in both Grosse Pointe League and State League. Currently, she's the president of Grand Traverse Area League and a Crawford County Unit member. If you have any questions about the League of Women Voters, this is the lady to ask. Here's Christina Schlitt.
Thank you, Marcia, and thank you, John, and thank you, Kirtland College, and thank you all for coming out here today. And as she said, my name is Christina Schlitt. I'm currently the president of the Grand Traverse Area League, which includes Crawford County Unit. Welcome to the 1st Congressional District candidates we have with us this evening. The office holder is referred to as congressman or congresswoman. Each representative is elected to a 2-year term, serving the people of a specific congressional district. The number of voting representatives in the House is fixed by law at no more than 435, proportionately representing the population of the 50 states. Currently, there are 13 in Michigan. So with us tonight are 2 candidates for the 1st Congressional District, Hallie Bard, Democratic Party challenger, and Andrew Gale, Libertarian Party challenger. Unable to participate are Liz Hakola, Working Class Party challenger, and incumbent Jack Bergman, Republican Party. We do have a statement from Representative Bergman, which will be read. I will now review the guidelines which were sent to the candidates before tonight's forum. Each candidate will have up to 3 minutes for an opening statement, 1 minute to answer each question. And if a question is addressed to a specific candidate, they have 90 seconds to answer, and the other candidate has 1 minute if they choose to answer that question. After the question portion is completed, each will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates are reminded to restrict their answers to their position on the question asked and not make any personal remarks about any other candidate. The timekeepers are here in front, and they will alert the candidate with a visual sign when you have 30 seconds left to finish an answer, and stop sign to indicate to the candidate that time is up. And you must stop talking. You are allowed to finish your sentence. I will gently remind you that your time is up if you continue. In the event that one candidate in a field of 2 does not appear, the forum cannot proceed under league auspices. There must be at least 2 candidates out of the field of 3 or more in order for the forum to proceed and to be televised. There will be no substitutes or stand-ins for a candidate. If a candidate is unable to participate in the forum, he or she may send an opening statement of specified length, which will be read by a member of the league. No campaign materials are allowed in the room in which the forum takes place. Such materials may be given to a league member prior to the forum to display outside the room when the forum is over. Candidates may not bring visuals for use during the forum. You may use written or electronic notes for accurate responses to questions. However, electronic devices used as communication will be allowed only if every candidate has the same opportunity to do so. There will be no devices allowed that provide an advantage over other candidates. The moderator will be a representative of the League of Women Voters, and the moderator will review the ground rules with the audience before the start of the forum or broadcast, which is what we're doing right now. Time limits on opening and closing statements and all responses will be strictly observed. The moderator has the responsibility to enforce those limits. The moderator also has the authority to interrupt the proceedings to enforce the ground rules and format. As moderator, I am a member of the League of Women Voters, and our question sorter is from Kirtland Community College, John Teal, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. The audience has guidelines as well. We need for you to turn off your cell phones, and please no applause or any comments from the audience during this forum, whether it is showing support or non-support. The audience is encouraged to submit questions during the forum using the 3x5 cards available. That is the only way we will take questions. And Kathy at the back of the room has the 3x5 cards. If you have not received yours, just raise your hand and she'll bring it. And when you have written your question, raise your hand again and she'll collect it and bring it up front here. As the League of Women Voters moderator tonight, I reserve the right to end the forum if guidelines are not adhered to. They are in place to provide the opportunity for candidates to share their views with you, the voters. Screening of questions by John are for clarity, general interest, relevance, redundancy, and propriety. No negative attacks or name calling. Alphabetical order by last name is also determining who will speak first tonight. The questions will then be rotated so that each candidate will have an opportunity to give the first response to a question. The closing statement will be given in reverse order from the opening statement. Now, opening statements, we will begin with candidate Callie Barr. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate this opportunity. My name is Callie Barr. I'm running for Congress here in Michigan's first congressional district, which we just heard was one of the largest congressional districts in the United States. I hail from Sheboygan, which is a place where my family goes back 5 generations. I met my husband, Matthew, at Sheboygan Area High School, the same high school my parents met and got married out of, and my grandparents. 9/11 occurred when I was in high school, something that we just remembered yesterday. And when that occurred, my high school boyfriend at that time enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. He wanted to fight for his country. And that would really change the course of our lives. We got married very young, 18 and 19 years old. We lived all across the United States. I got my teaching degree during that time from Central Michigan University. My husband, Matt, would go on to fight in Iraq and Afghanistan. He came home with post-traumatic stress and an undiagnosed traumatic brain injury. At that point, I segued in my career from teaching to working in nonprofit for military families and veterans. And in that experience, what I really saw is that we were missing the voice of the enlisted class. And a lot of folks who looked like folks back home, people who went into the trades or maybe didn't get a college education and then struggled to find housing and healthcare access or good jobs. And so at that point, I decided I needed more tools in my toolbox. I went back to school later in life. I graduated from the University of Michigan Law School, Go Blue. We're going to have a better football game in the future too. It's coming. It's going to happen. Worked as a litigation attorney after that for several years, while also helping to build a platform to give veterans free legal services. I'm running for Congress because we need someone to show up for our district. When you play extremist politics, the politics of Washington, what you're doing are leaving behind the folks here at home. And I'll tell you something, here in our district, we know what it means to be resilient, to be gritty, to come up with solutions, to have one another's back. We know what it means to serve. And it's that kind of attitude, it's that kind of togetherness that I want to bring to Washington, D.C. Because to me, that's what this is all about. It's about bringing our voice, having a voice to be reckoned with, bringing our voice to Washington. And to do that, you got to show up. So thank you.
Thank you. Now I will read candidate Bergman's statement, alphabetically speaking. I'm sorry.
Let Bergman talk first.
Okay. Thank you all for being here today at Kirtland Community College in Grayling and with the League of Women Voters. I send my regrets that I'm unable to attend as I'm in DC for votes this week. I've had the privilege of representing the 1st District of Michigan since 2017, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do so in the years ahead. Since taking office, together we've accomplished some great victories, both legislatively and locally. Our office has helped countless constituents navigate federal agencies like Social Security, VA, the Postal Service, and many others. Since January 2023 alone, we have recovered over $28 million for constituents, completed over 800 cases, and had over 100,000 correspondence with constituents. This is what representation looks like, and that's why I'm so proud of our team and the work we do every day on behalf of the 1st District. While I can't be at the forum today and the forum rules would not allow a surrogate to speak on my behalf, my message remains the same. Our nation is at a time of choosing. We need a real leadership in Washington. We are nearing a breaking point. Bad policies have driven inflation to record numbers. Families right here in the district are working 2 jobs and can't afford to buy groceries and gas. This election is about more than control of the White House or Congress. It's about our families and future. We have a vacuum of leadership that has led to the crisis after crisis, from the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal to a porous southern border that has allowed nearly 10 million illegal aliens into our country. I'm proud to be the only candidate in this race with a track record of working together and providing real results for Michigan's first district. I will continue working every day to earn your vote and to represent you with honor in Washington. Very respectfully, Jack Bergman. And now we will hear the opening statement from candidate Andrew Gale.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Very nice to see everybody and doing your part in being part of our democracy. So I figured I'd just kind of start off and talk a little bit about my past and history. I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area, so don't hold that against me. I moved from there at 17 to Colorado State University in Fort Collins and got my degree in construction management. From there, I took a job out in California and I worked for an engineered wood products company in California, and then met my wife out there, Cindy, and we got married in California and traveled around the country and spent a lot of time on the road for a year. And as we traveled, we were actually looking for a place we wanted to raise our family. And as we drove around, there were a lot of beautiful places in our country, but the place that we loved the most was this central northern Michigan area. And we wound up in Traverse City, and now we live in Leelanau County. I'm the youngest out of 8 children. Both my parents, well, my mother immigrated here from Germany. A few generations back, my father's family immigrated from Ireland. So I'm half Irish and half German. So my joke is we're going to either drink together and then fight, or we're going to fight with each other and then drink together. So, making my way out here to Michigan 16 years ago, I was able to start a business, and I am just a regular person when it comes to that. I've got an organization that I started, a nonprofit called Bay Area Recycling for Community. And we started that in 2008 and currently employ about 25 workers, and we recycle all sorts of different things. So that's kind of my history of where I came from. What led me to want to run for this office in this beautiful first district is, as January 6th unfolded in front of us, and we all watched it on TV, I realized at that point that the Republican Party that I was born and raised into was not the party that was representing me anymore. And I wanted to be a person that made a change and made a difference, and provided the systems for someone to have a conservative, valued person in this elected office, and to be able to go through and provide a good representation for our community. So thank you very much for your time tonight, and I look forward to our debate.
Thank you. The questions will now begin with candidate Andrew Gale leading us off. Okay, the first question, and at any time, if you want me to repeat it, please just say so. The DNR permits the Michigan National Guard to train on state land. What is your position on electronic and cyber warfare research and development in northern Michigan?
Wow. So repeat the question for me, please.
Certainly, certainly. And timers, it doesn't start until he answers. The DNR permits the Michigan National Guard to train on state land. What is your position on electronic and cyber warfare research and development in northern Michigan?
So that's really interesting. Do I need to be closer to the microphone for this? Okay. So, we are living in a world where the United States, for the first time in a long time, is not currently at war with any other countries. We are involved in proxy wars. We're involved in supporting other democracies, and we've built up this war machine in our country. Billions and billions of dollars of the federal government is being spent on creating new weapons and new technologies. And when it comes to the DNR, I suppose that the federal government, does not have right or ownership of state land. But working with the state, I'm sure that they are out there developing these technologies as we speak. And not just this, but all sorts of new technologies as we see in the Ukraine war with the new technologies of drone and the terrible things that we do to each other in the name of trying to create a peaceful country, a peaceful nation, a peaceful world. We go through and do things that are backwards and against what those principles are. As a libertarian, I would like to see us not be the world's police force. I understand that these technologies are going to continue to be developed, and I suppose that the United States, should be the leader and have the best technologies to protect our nation and our borders. But to take those technologies and to take them across the seas and use them in ways where we're hurting and killing thousands, tens of thousands, millions of people, I think that that's the direction I do not want to go.
Thank you. Candidate Barr, same question to you.
Oh, thank you. So, of course, last year in 2023, we had Grayling wanted a lease for 162,000 acres to expand Grayling. And we saw that was denied by the DNR, and they've gotten a permit to maybe use about 50,000 acres, right, on an annual basis. And, I think it's important as we look towards the future that we do want, when we're looking at modernization of our military, it is important for our national security. At the same time, I think we're very cognizant that we want to be aware of the impacts that kind of technology might have or may have on our water and our wildlife, right? Our fish and animals in the area, and what these new technologies, the impact that they may have. And so I know, when they were looking at that broad land use, did they really need it? We wanted to make sure there were buffer zones between that new technology and the water. I think that was smart to look at. And so I think this is something we have to continue to monitor as we go forward towards the future.
Thank you. Next question. We will start with Callie Barr. PFAS contamination is a serious problem in Crawford County. While efforts are in place to remediate drinking water with a municipal water supply, the groundwater continues to be contaminated. If elected, what would you do to help continue the cleanup process?
Thank you. Absolutely. So PFAS, the forever chemical, is something that we have in this district, and particularly here in this area. I think it's really important that we hold polluters responsible for that cleanup, and that we support innovation too, and in making sure our water is clean. Up in Marquette, it's pretty cool. They're looking at in a smart lab there a fungus that actually pulls PFAS out of the water. That's pretty neat. And so we want to be supporting these new technologies as we're doing cleanup, holding corporate polluters. And even, we look at our Army base, right? And I have been on military bases that have had contamination, right? And service members that have been, had the ill effects of drinking water that wasn't clean. So this is near and dear to my heart and something that we absolutely need to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Gale.
So with PFAS, we as an organization in the recycling world, we come across it in products that are being utilized every day, drinking containers, and the chemicals that come out of production for different things contaminate our soils. And so I believe that if I was elected to US Congress, I would work hard towards creating environmental laws that were able to take the people that are creating those dangerous chemicals and creating those problems in our beautiful environment. We all love the part of the states that we live in here, and we want to be able to keep it as clean as possible. I love the idea, and I've heard about the bacteria that goes in there and separates and basically eats up the PFAS. And I think that those are great technologies that could be supported in this area. But as a libertarian, again, I'm going to keep going back to this part. The idea is that we have the freedoms to do the things that we want as long as we're not harming other people and harming the environment. So having it in such a way where we can keep this material from even getting out is the first step, and not just trying to figure out how to clean things up, but how to keep them out of our environment in the first place.
Thank you. Question number 3, don't sit down, you're up next. Regarding political parties across the aisle, what would you do to support bipartisan legislation?
Well, as you know, as a libertarian, there aren't any libertarians in Congress right now. But the way I see it is that we have two parties. We have a duopoly in our political system. We've got the Republicans and the Democrats constantly fighting and biting for power. And as a libertarian, what I would like to see is us to be more of that aisle. Instead of reaching across the aisle, I would say we need to bring people together and create this aisle of people that all believe that we have the ability to make these changes if we just come together. And so sometimes I feel the role of a good libertarian in Congress would be to create the places where those two parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, can come together. I really do believe that, there's not much that separates us. I believe the people in here are good people, and the people in the state, we all want to see, peace and freedoms, and we want to see the systems that we've created to be able to bring people together. And there's more things that we have in common than the things that separate us.
Thank you. Callie?
We have to be willing to and courageous enough to put our country before any political party. That also means putting our district and putting our folks here ahead of any sort of extremist agenda. There's a bipartisan problem solvers caucus in Congress where to join, you have to bring someone across the aisle to join with you. This is a good thing. And I think we have to encourage these efforts as constituents with our elected representatives. We heard in an opening statement from our incumbent, Jack Bergman, addressing the southern border. There was bipartisan legislation. That means Republicans and Democrats who came together and had a bipartisan bill specifically to address the border. He did not support that, right? And I think that we have to be willing to move beyond identifying problems. We have to be people who are working to identify solutions. And that doesn't always mean we're happy. As an attorney negotiating, I would sometimes say, if both people leave the table and they're not happy, you probably got a good deal. And we have to be willing for that. And that's what happens. I've got 2 girls, 13 and 10. I do a lot of negotiating. So I'm committed. I'm committed to doing what we need to do to get results for our folks here.
Thank you. Next question. Callie, you'll start. What initiatives do you support for making healthcare more affordable and accessible to the public?
Healthcare. This is very personal to me. When the Sheboygan Hospital went bankrupt in, I think it was 2012, my mom lost her job. She was a nurse, and with that, they lost their healthcare. About 2 weeks out from that day, my dad needed surgery for cancer. We had no insurance. And because a hospital had gone bankrupt, this was unprecedented. This really didn't happen. So Blue Cross finally came in at the very last minute and offered a COBRA plan that was worth thousands of dollars. So we had to pitch in. We had to try to have enough insurance just so that my dad didn't die from cancer. That would be all right as long as he was able to afford the surgery. And look, my story is just one of many of folks around our district who don't have access to healthcare. So what do we need to do? Well, the thing is, healthcare right now operates as if we're in a market system, right? But we know that you don't have a choice when you get sick. right? And we don't know the cost. There's some idea that you should be able to compare costs of where you go. Well, guess what? I would love for any of you to call up Munson tomorrow and say, hey, I'd really love to know how much my hip replacement's going to be. Can you give me a quote on that? My sister's a pediatrician and she'll have parents ask her, if I do this, or if I get that x-ray, or if I take this medicine, what's it going to cost? And she has no idea. So we need to build on, we need to strengthen the ACA right now. We need to make sure that we have preventative care that's covered. You know, we need to make sure that we have a public option that makes sense and that is actually affordable for folks. And we need to make sure that Medicare is protected and not privatized. We heard from our incumbent about Social Security and Medicare. He would like to privatize those programs. And so I'm going to stop right there. There's work to do and we can do it.
Thank you. Andrew, same question.
So as a business owner, you know, working within the systems that are in front of us, it's difficult for small businesses to get the healthcare needs taken for their workers. I had a worker just recently, been with us for 12 years and had a stroke. We were out celebrating and wound up in the hospital. And I felt terrible that we had not a system in place that was affordable enough for us. Now, we're a nonprofit, which doesn't necessarily mean that we don't try to make a profit. We operate a lot like a business, but we just don't have the systems in place. And what I would do is try to create a free market system where businesses that have, and there's a lot of businesses that are not required. We're one of them because we have less than 50 workers, that we're not required to carry certain levels of healthcare. But it's not affordable for us. And so I would go in there and try to create a hybrid system where there's that social net for people, which is great. I mean, my guy is rehabbing here in Sutton's Bay and getting better every day. But I felt terrible as a business owner that there was not a process in place for me to be able to get affordable health care. And so what I would do is I would go and try to create a system of free market health care that follows that pattern of libertarianism where the people are able to like get the healthcare that they need, and the businesses are able to get the systems and the healthcare systems that they need.
Thank you. Next question, and we'll start with you, Andrew. Would you support the removal of daylight savings time?
So funny story. Not a lot of people know this, but just north of Nova Scotia is a province of Canada that has a half-hour daylight savings time change, which might be very confusing up there in New Brunswick there. But, you know, I don't really think that we need to like be manipulating our time. And my joke is that if we're going to, we might as well jump it forward a whole day in an hour so we can jump over a Monday. And when we go fall back, we jump a whole day in an hour back and we can go back to Saturday and have an extra couple of weekend days. That's my joke. So when it comes to the daylight savings, I understand why it was implemented in the first place. But I think that people can adapt. I mean, we all have phones and things on us that are allowed to do, you know, keep track of time. Schools could start an hour later and, you know, things can change in our regular world, our reality that we live in without having to jump forward. Although with that being said, I do like that extra hour when it comes in the summertime, but yeah.
Thank you. Callie, same question.
Yes.
You would support it. Thank you. Okay, next question. We'll start with you, Callie. Okay, it's a two-part question. Do you want me to read the whole question and then repeat just the first part?
You can read the whole thing.
Okay. What is your opinion of Louisiana's requirement to post the 10 Commandments in the public schools? Would you support the tenets of all religions?
Is that the whole question?
Two parts.
Okay. Our founding fathers, when they established this country, made it so that there was no establishment of religion. And that was smart. And the reason that they did that was because they had come and they knew the history of folks who had come here to this country and knew what would happen if you tried to mold people into thinking how you do, living how you do. The promise of America, the promise of these United States is that you can live your life free from government intrusion, right? That you can live how you want to live. You can be who you want to be. And to me, that kind of freedom is something that we always want to protect for every single American. I am a Christian. And to me, a public school place is a place where we have Christians, where there's folks who are Jewish, where there's folks who are Muslim. There's kids who go to church and don't go to church. And it should be a safe and welcoming place for all kids. You know, as a teacher, there's a lot that we can learn from one another and a lot I learned from students. And I would never want a student to feel like a place of school is not a place that's welcoming to them. And then the second part of that question,
Would you support the tenets of all religions?
I guess I'd need some more explanation of what exactly that question's asking.
I'm guessing that, do you support the value
support-
systems of all of
It's-
diversified religions, all religions?
I support all people being able to live and worship in the way of their choosing.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, same question. Do you want me to reread it?
Yes, please.
First part is, what is your opinion of Louisiana's requirement to post the 10 Commandments in public schools? Second part, would you support the tenets of all religions?
So the first part there of Louisiana implementing the posting of the 10 Commandments is completely unconstitutional. There is a separation of church and state. Like Callie said, our founding fathers were aware of this in the beginning, and they were running and getting away from that type of tyranny that was trying to control the people's religions. And people have the right and freedom to express themselves in any way. I myself, you know, I'm a bit of a Taoist. I love the Tao Te Ching. It's a book that was written 500 years before Christ, and it is all about the great unfolding of our universe. And although I like to talk about it and I like to share that message with people and to let them know that this is all, we're all perfectly part of this natural world. It would not be my right to put that into any kind of federal or governmental building. And so I would be opposed to that. And when the second part of the question is, do I support the tenets of all religions?
Yes.
So yes, I would support, or no religion, or whatever someone wishes to believe. So they have that right and that freedom, and that was liberty that was given to us in the Constitution. And I don't understand our society right now when we're having to read about this or see it on TV or see it on our computers, that there's states that are completely not paying attention to the Constitution. So
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with you, Andrew. Where do you stand on the support to the Ukrainian government?
so that's a really great question. As a libertarian, we don't want to see any wars. We don't want to see the United States of America be the police to the entire world and be getting into conflicts like this. This was not one that we started. This is a war that Russia started by invading Ukraine and taking away their sovereign parts of their country. I believe that we should support Ukraine throughout. We've already committed ourselves into this in such a way, and I would continue to support this, but I would want to put my foot down and say, this is it. Let's not get involved in this. As a humanitarian aid, you know, I would feel fine providing humanitarian aid, providing weapons constantly to countries to go and murder and kill each other. I don't think that that is something that we want to continue to do. And I understand, you know, if I was elected and going in there, you have to like meet the obligations of what we already started and what we're already doing. We don't want to be that country that every 4 years the wind changes and people can't count on us for support and especially our friends and our allies. I would like to see us not have aggression around the world. I would like to see us not be the police force around the world. There's $1 trillion a year just about that gets spent on our defense and our war systems. The United States government was designed at the federal level to protect our borders. And now we've expanded it to protecting our interests in the world, right? So now we're protecting our interests. But they're there to protect our borders, provide a police force, and a limited, smaller government is what I would be shooting for. And I would want to continue to support Ukraine at this time, but I would like to see that stop.
Thank you. Okay, Callie, same question.
Yes, we absolutely have to support Ukraine as an ally, and also for our own national security when we look on a global stage and global stability. You know, when you even have countries that are looking at the US response to Russian aggression, for instance, China looking at Taiwan. You know, we even had Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the US House, say he would rather send US bullets than American bodies. I do believe it is that serious. And when you look at where Ukraine is situated, right next to Poland, we understand that by supporting Ukraine, we are also making sure that we're stopping what could be a much larger conflict in this region.
Thank you. Next question, starting with you, Kelly. Do you support the building of the veterans cemeteries in northern Michigan by the state and federal government?
I do. Thank you. That's a great question. We only have 2 cemeteries downstate that are open. I think there are 2 more that are closed. We have a very high veteran population here in Michigan. We know what it means to serve. You know, if I just look at the Marine Corps, not even thinking of like all our other branches of service, we send just as many Marines to the Marine Corps as California and Texas, and we have 1/3 of the population. And so to have a cemetery to honor our veterans and their families, to me, is it's something that we absolutely should have. I was speaking with a gentleman earlier who was saying, you know, we should have one within every 150 miles, which would mean another one here in northern Michigan and perhaps a couple in the Upper Peninsula too. And these are things that the VA funds. They'll fund starting one, but then the operational cost would go to the state, for instance. And so I absolutely support this endeavor. And it's my understanding that one is potentially underway, the beginning talks in this region, in this district.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, same question.
Could you repeat the question for me?
Absolutely. Do you support the building of veteran cemeteries in northern Michigan by the state and federal government?
Well, first of all, I do support the building of the cemetery. I don't support that it needs to come out of our taxes. We are taxed more and more every year with different ways, different taxes. We provide all this money to the state and federal government. I believe that such a great cause, because we owe our freedoms to our veterans, and I would personally donate to that. And that's one of our libertarian principles, is that all these things do not need to be paid for out of taxable money. That's taking away the freedom of the person that made the money and being forced to pay taxes. Not that I think that it's a bad thing. I would definitely support cemetery, but I think that would be one where people would come together and at that community level and provide that. I don't think that that's necessarily the job of the state or federal government.
Okay, thank you. Next question, we'll start with you, Andrew. Name 3 U.S. House committees and tell us what would qualify you to be on those committees?
So the Ways and Means Committee, I like that committee because it's very fiery, and this past, a few years, we've been watching a lot of debate happening at that level. The environmental committees, being a recycling organization executive director, I believe that I would want to take my talents that I've learned over these past years and provide that experience that I've had to create a cleaner, healthier environment for us to be part of that committee. And then and I'm not sure exactly what the committee name is, but being a business owner again and wanting to see more free markets evolve from what we do, but the business and administration committee, that would be something that I would be very interested in.
Okay, one more committee.
That was 3.
Oh, there was, oh, sorry, I missed it. Coughing here. Okay, Kelly, same question.
Thank you. Veteran Affairs. I have a soft spot here for our veterans. We have a very high veteran population, and I have a lot of ideas that I would like to put to use here to help our veterans. Agriculture, we are a very diverse state when it comes to agriculture. We have the Farm Bill, and there's a lot of rural assistance that we get through that. And then finally, while it's not a committee, I know that, I really love the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus. The one I mentioned earlier, where you have folks that join from each side of the aisle and they look at some of the pressing issues and they come up with legislative recommendations. I would really love to be a part of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Kelly again. What is your understanding of how AI is being used in the federal government?
Ooh. AI. This is a good one to talk about, especially as we are looking forward into this election cycle here in the next couple of months. And so that we are eyes wide open about information, misinformation, and what that looks like. I know this was asked particularly with the federal government, but I look at it broadly within our society, because I feel like we're very much right now catching the tiger by the tail, right? And we have to be really forward thinking about artificial intelligence, because the decisions that we make are going to impact the next several decades, right? Whether it's deep fakes, I have a daughter in 8th grade, and I think a lot about already the issues they've had with students using pictures and a face and creating videos of other fellow students without their permission or consent. When it comes to political advertisements, we can think about the harm that's caused by being able to use those same types of images to spread messages that are not accurate or honest. Also on the commercial side, when we think about algorithms, for instance, like that were used for purpose to create divisiveness. So you can think about being on social media and a post that makes you really angry. And so then you're like, this makes me angry. And so you comment on it and you share it and you send it to your neighbor. That engagement drives advertisement. And so what we were doing is actually commercializing hatred. And I think it's really important that we are tackling that when it comes to some of these private companies that are running, for instance, like Facebook. And so for me, that's something we absolutely need to be addressing now. And especially when we look at a Congress where we have folks that don't even know how to operate a laptop, right? We need to get on top of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, same question.
Repeat the question one more time, just so I.
Certainly. What is your understanding of how AI is being used in federal government?
So information and technology is, what do they say? It just about doubles every 2 years. This is coming at us in full force in so many different directions. I believe that, the CHIPS and Science Act that was passed in the Biden administration, of getting the better control from Taiwan of those chips being built here in the United States to protect the technology that goes into it is of utmost importance for us to be the leaders in that. The reason why I say that is the other countries that could be leaders in that most likely will use that and abuse it and create misinformation and disinformation that we've already started to see in the campaigns that are being run even in this campaign cycle, this election cycle. So being able to make sure we have complete and total understanding of it. There's really good aspects of artificial intelligence to be able to utilize it to create new programs and systems and understanding and give us a deeper understanding of our world and what we can do in the technology with it. It could be used for good, it could be used for bad. And so I would want to just make sure that we have it being used for good and limit what it is for it to be used in negative ways. And then along that same line, we want to be able to go through and take the artificial intelligence and make more better choices with it, you know, and be able to make sure that it's being used for good. That's my point.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, and Andrew, we'll start with you. What is your position on the possible removal of the U.S. Department of Education?
So that's a good one. And again, as a libertarian, we want to see things happen more organically, more spontaneously. The Department of Education, and if elected and going to Congress, I would really want to like better understand exactly whatever is going on with all of the money being spent in the Department of Education. I believe that money is better utilized at the township level. Our system of governments, you know, starts at the federal. I would like to see the federal government have less and less control over our freedoms and our lives. It goes down to the state. States go to counties. Counties go to townships. And when it comes to us utilizing, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. What is your position on the possible removal of the U.S. Department of Education?
I think that money is best spent closer to our communities. And so that's where I would like to see that money trickle down to. And people can make better decisions locally in their school districts. It might be clunky in places, but there would be the ability for us to create new and better educational systems if we were able to take that and move that money down closer to where the education happens.
Okay, thank you. Callie, same question.
I do not support the removal of the Department of Education, full stop. As a former educator, I know that if we want to see a great future for our kids, then we invest in them. And if we want to be world leaders on the world stage, then we invest in our future, and our future are our kids. And the Department of Education ensures that we are working to have equitable access to education, that we have innovative teaching techniques, that we're supporting our youth, and that we're supporting our teachers. And so to me, I absolutely support having a department that's working hard for tomorrow, that's working hard for our youth of today.
Thank you. Next question. Okay, Kelly, we'll start with you. What is your definition of a free market?
That's a great question. You know, to me, a free market is one where folks can engage in an exchange of commerce and ideas. But also, albeit one, in order to have that, you also have to have adequate guide rails in order for that to happen, right? If you look at, for instance, back in the 1920s, you know, we had a system where we had, you know, kids working in mines, and we had, you know, income inequality that was exacerbated by sort of unbridled capitalism, right? And out of that was born the labor movement, where we had organized people come together and demand things like an 8-hour workday, which we now enjoy, and the weekend. You know, we just had Labor Day, and we can think about the sacrifices that got us there. Today, we are now again in a period of income inequality that we haven't seen since the 1920s, and what we see is the reemergence of the labor movement. And again, we have people coming together to demand things like fair wages for work, for retirement, for the ability to have a life outside of work, to have health care. And these are good things, because what happens is when you're paid adequately, then you can participate in the economy. You can participate in this great exchange of ideas. And that, to me, is what it means to have a truly free market, because you're not free if you're being stomped on by absolute corporate greed.
Thank you. Andrew, what is your definition of a free market?
So my definition of a free market in that libertarian view is that people have the right to have that freedom to do commerce and to do business without the federal government providing all this regulation. As a small business owner, there is so much regulation and taxes that even as a nonprofit, we have to pay towards. It makes it very difficult to operate. And there's big corporations that go through and hold the smaller businesses down. And it's unfair because the larger businesses, they have lobbyists, they get subsidies, that they have all sorts of different interactions with the federal government that come in and create this imbalance inside of our businesses and our economy. And in a perfect world, that utopian view of libertarianism is the ability for us to just have the freedom to do the commerce and not be impeded by the federal government.
Thank you. Next question. Okay, this will be the last question before we go to closing statements. In what legislative areas do you see the most potential cross-party collaboration? Starting with you, Andrew.
Repeat the question one more time, please.
In what legislative areas do you see the most potential cross-party collaboration?
Well, I'm going to say that the Republicans and the Democrats worked very hard on a border bill, and we have a problem down at our southern border in the United States. And the collaboration is already there. It's already been done. It just needs to go across the finish line. That would be one legislative place where we could show that we don't have to be partisan, where we can show that we believe in humanity and we want to take care of people regardless of the color of their skin and regardless of what they're doing. My parents immigrated from other countries to get here because they wanted a better life. They wanted to raise a family that was there, and supported with the federal government. And so I think that would be one place that we're almost there and we could get it across that finish line.
Okay, thank you. Kelly?
While I have hope that most things, that we will arrive at a place where we can work collaboratively on the legislation that affects the American people in general, I feel like right now where we might be able to make movement is on inflation, bringing that down, costs for folks. I also feel like housing in our areas, I've seen folks on both sides of the aisle really looking at working on addressing the housing crisis within our district. Additionally, protecting Medicare and Social Security. This is something that is widely supported by a majority of Americans. And I feel like that's something that we could work on right now. And infrastructure investments like rural broadband internet. That's very important, and in our district, for instance, we had over $480 million that we received from the Infrastructure Investment Act for like the SULAs for jobs. That's a great thing. And it's a great thing because while our incumbent, Jack Bergman, voted against that funding, he sure likes taking credit for it. So I think there's areas there where we can definitely move forward on doing good things for our district.
Thank you. This concludes the question part of the forum. Now we will start with candidate Gale to begin closing statements. Andrew?
Well, first off, again, I want to say thank you to the people here and thank you to Callie for having this debate. I like practicing this. I'm actually running for US Congress in 2036. I'm just getting my practice in right now. It's obvious that I'm just a concerned citizen. You know, what happened on January 6th, let me back up from there. When I sat down at the dinner table when I turned 18 years old and I looked at my dad and I said, I was filling out my voter registration card. And I asked him, I said, what are we? Are we Democrat, Republican? I didn't know. And my dad said, we're Republicans. And I said, okay. And I went from there and I tried for years and years and decades to support that Republican agenda of conservatism. And my dad backed it up with, we're compassionate conservatives. So I wanted to be able to see that happen. And I actually went out and campaigned with George W. Bush in Fresno, California, when I lived out there, thinking that once we have all three branches there, not three branches, but the Senate and the Congress and the president, that we would see something change and we would see something happen that was going to be a conservative movement. And all I saw was them give subsidies to pharmaceutical companies and pay more money and out in our taxes and spend more money. And then that's when I realized that there wasn't much of a difference between the two parties. And I'm a believer in a third party system. I think a three-legged chair doesn't fall over. And I like the idea that there's a third party out there. Now, Callie is working towards being a professional politician, and that's awesome. We need people like Callie that and other people that are out there that have that drive. I'm more of a concerned citizen, and I want to see us make these changes. And I want to see a good, strong third party system out there. And the libertarians have done a great job of getting the signatures in all 50 states and being able to be on the ballot. When I started this after January 6th, I went through and made a decision that I was going to run for a political office. And so that's when I decided to start running. When the opportunity came up to run for US Congress, I thought that would be a good place to start, right? Other than sitting on a couple of boards, I have not had any political experience. I look forward to retiring so I can start my new job of being more of a politician. But what I noticed in my business, when I started recycling, I didn't know anything about recycling, and I learned it really, really quickly. And so if elected, I would learn this very quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Callie?
Thank you. I started tonight telling you how my life had really changed on 9/11 when I was just a teenager. And yesterday I was in a class full of high school students telling them about what 9/11 felt like. And I realized as I was, with them that experience was not a part of their collective memory. They hadn't been born yet. And today, when I think about September 12th, I remember what that day was like too. Because on September 12th, after we were attacked, what you saw all around this country were American flags, country songs, us having one another's back. And when we saw that flag, it wasn't a threat. It was a call to unity. It was about us seeing one another as Americans and as neighbors. And that feeling of unity, of coming together, of being one, is also something that these young students I was talking to have not yet felt in their experience, which has been full so far of a vitriol, a division. And to me, what's so important as a mom, as a former educator, as someone who has been in the military family, is to again see a way forward where we can have each other's back, where we can know what it feels like to see a neighbor and to understand that we are Americans first before we are anything else. And that's what I want to do here in this district. I want to be a neighbor. I want to take our good ideas that I hear about throughout this whole district from either party. I want to take those good ideas. I want to take our resiliency. I want to take our grit, and I want to bring it to Washington, D.C. And I want to show them what it's like to be from a rural place where we know what it feels like. We know what it feels like to know each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Please give the candidates a round of applause. And thank you, candidates, for being part of this forum. Your presence tonight allows the folks here to know where you stand on issues or problems that you may face or will face if elected. Thank you. And I'd like to turn this back over to Marcia Copa and then John for closing statements.
Thank you all for being here. We thank the candidates for their participation tonight. It is important for voters to be informed of your views as it come directly from you. Candidates that do not participate deny their constituents that information. In keeping with our nonpartisan stance, the League of Women Voters neither endorses nor opposes candidates' responses to questions or in their opening closing statements. We encourage all voters to fact check information. Please go to the candidates' websites or to vote411.org for more information. For information about your new voting rights, please go to michiganvoting.org or michigan.gov SOS elections voting. And for information about the Crawford County Lead, go to lwvgta.org. Thank you all for coming and participating tonight. We have handouts for you at the tables near the entrance to the room. LWVGTA offers programs and forums and face-to-face and virtual formats. Thank you to Kirtland Community College and Traverse Area Community Media for assisting our community in expanding and strengthening citizen access. Thank you again for our moderator, Christina Schlitt, and to the volunteers of the League of Women Voters of GTA, Crawford County Unit, who are helped with this forum, especially John Thiel for organizing this event. Remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. Get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, Christina. And thanks again to the candidates for their engagement this evening and for the questions that came from the audience as well. I apologize that we weren't able to get through every question that came in. PFAS is a very popular topic and several of the questions were also on that same topic. So, but on behalf of Kirtland Community College, once again, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. As I said at the opening of this event, we are so we so value civic engagement and connecting with the issues that matter to us as citizens. And so we appreciate your attendance. We appreciate your questions. And above all, we appreciate the candidates for attending and sharing their thoughts on these views this evening with all of you. Before we end the evening, I'm going to have to get off the microphone to do this. We did want to extend from Kirtland a token of our appreciation to both candidates in attendance and to Christina and Marcia for helping us to organize this event. So we do have some goodie bags of some Kirtland swag, I guess. I'm not sure what all is in there. Some good materials with Kirtland branding on it for all of you this evening. But for everyone in attendance on your way out, plenty of pop and water and cookies. I'm here to tell you the cookies that they make here at Kirtland are top notch. Take some home if you have kids or grandkids at home who might enjoy some. Fantastic. Thanks again for coming out this evening.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.